there. So excited to get started. So excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop and this program in general is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. So I'm expecting you to watch this either live at 8 p.m. right when it goes live, or within the next 24 hours, and then post your comments to the questions that I have for you during the workshop. I will state those questions during the workshop when I'm doing our interviews with our interviewees, our guests for the evening. But more importantly, I want to know that you're engaged, that you're participating with this, because we've got a lot of great content for you. Now, when you get introduced to your mentor, reach out immediately. You should start the conversation immediately. You should not delay. I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're waiting for a career fair to happen. I don't care if you're waiting for some job interview to happen or you're waiting to hear back from some company. Get started. These mentors are here to help you. The more you delay getting opportunities with your mentor. So get started. But for successful completion of this program, for the way that we define it, have 3 conversations, at least 3 conversations. And those are just the general guidelines for when we believe that you should have those conversations by. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. Now that I've shared my story with you, I am excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship, and I hope that me being vulnerable with you, maybe it inspired you to be vulnerable with your mentor. Hopefully it gave you the confidence to be comfortable with your mentor, and at minimum, hopefully it just gave you the confidence to be comfortable with yourself and who you are and where you want to be and where you're going. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can be better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is the one, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. But then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message, but if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you, are going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 70% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker. But one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else. Something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening. And I promise you, it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speakers. We've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest.
All right, everyone, we are about to dive into our topic this evening, how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I am wanting to get an internship, wanting to get a job, wanting to take that next step professionally. And I'm trying to think, how do I get my foot in the door for these professional opportunities? What can I do to make myself stand out or make myself get heard or at least be recognized from the organizations that I'd like to be getting hired from? Fortunately, we've got a great guest with us here this evening. We've got Quinn Pearl. Quinn has done some amazing things from a business development, relationship development perspective. I think he's going to have incredible perspective and insight for you all as you work on how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. Quinn, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Quinn, I'd love to just kick it off. Tell us about what you do and tell us, how did you get into this role in the first place?
Okay, so I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales for Recuro Health. I've been selling telemedicine insurance since 2017. It's not insurance, it's telemedicine services. I come from the insurance world, so my background prior to selling telemedicine was working with employee benefits, doing enrollments, selling health insurance policies. It's a very regulated industry. And basically my career started in 2001 when I got licensed in the insurance world. I spent, I guess, from 2001 to 2014, just scrapping it, like, struggling, commission only, building networks, building friends, relationships that I could leverage. But I spent probably the first 5 years of my life trying to make ends meet. To be honest, I had financial trouble, and I was recently married and was having my first child, and I was borrowing money from family and just trying to figure out how to make it work. And so I think from the big picture, I can look back and say that all of the trials and struggles I went through for the first probably 10 years of my career really got me to where I could step into a new industry, selling telemedicine. And then with COVID and some other things that came about, my career just blossomed. It really took off. And then my company was acquired by a larger entity called Recuro, and that put me from vice president to senior vice president, and that's how I got here today.
That's cool. So hopefully we can save our students a little time beyond just 10 years of struggling and figuring it out to find new and more creative ways to get their foot in the door. So
Sure.
What did you find is a really effective way to getting your foot in the door for professional opportunities in even those periods of struggle and challenges?
Yep. So great point. When I say struggle, I mean, my goal as a 25-year-old, I was just getting out of college. My goal was to retire by 30. So that was like, it was like right there. I'm going to retire by 30. And how am I going to do this? And basically, I, just started trying to define my career. I knew what I wanted to be was an entrepreneur, whatever it took. I'm just going to run my own business. And I tried that. I got in self-employed, got to figure out how to do the taxes, how to, hire employees. I was doing all kinds of things. So I think number one, try to define your career goals. Like, what do you want to do? Like, to get your foot in the door, you kind of have to be able to really define what you want to do immediately, and just understand that it's going to take some little twists and turns as you move along. So define kind of what your career goals are, and then start researching, looking around, start targeting companies that you think your ideal job opportunities or ideal industries that you want to be in. And the research process is going to take time. So look at what kind of values that company has, their culture. Go on to LinkedIn and start stalking all of those companies. Go onto their website and look up who are the decision makers and leaders at those companies, and then go to LinkedIn. And as a new person, and I will tell you, I get dozens of LinkedIn requests every week. And as a leader, somebody that's been doing this for a long time, I don't always accept every invite, but I do accept invites from people that look hungry, that are excited, that can give me a little message that, is pointed and say, hey, I'm trying to network, trying to figure out, meet people in the industry I'm interested in. And so start requesting invites from people, leaders in LinkedIn, and start developing your network.
And I love what you said about showing that you're hungry. I think one other thing that you can show students is that you're vulnerable. And by that, I just mean by saying, hey, I'm a student. I'm interested in learning more about XYZ industry. I would love to connect and chat if you'd be open to it.
Absolutely.
You'd be open to connecting.
I would accept an invite from somebody that did that before taking an invite from somebody trying to sell me leads or sell me something. I mean, it's a non-threatening way to get in front of me. And I look at every single person that invites me to be a friend. And as long as you're like not threatening me or like trying to step on or interject your sales pitch to me, I am just like, that's perfect. I'll be friends with almost anybody. And I think most leaders have that same mentality.
100%. I love that. Because I think, if you're a student and you just say, I'm a student, that immediately takes all of our defense mechanisms out. We've just been inundated on LinkedIn with connection requests that are all just sales pitch, sales pitch, sales pitch, sales pitch. And it is so annoying. And so immediately, anytime I get a connection request, my defense mechanisms are up. So by saying I'm a student, I'm interested in learning more about the industry, you're like, okay, cool. You've softened me up. Like I'm honored that you'd even ask me for advice on the industry, because like I'd be happy to share it.
Yep. Right. And give a little sentence, like you can request an invite or request a friendship. And if you just leave it blank, most likely people are going to overlook you and not necessarily accept your request. So give a little nice pointed message, very innocuous, and then don't stop with one. Like keep doing your research, like look for other companies. Like if you're going into insurance, like look at the big players in your city and like figure out kind of, okay, and I want this particular role. I see myself in 10 years doing this. Figure out, because you don't just get hired in as that role. You're not going to become the vice president of sales for, a big insurance agency right out of the gate. You may have to start as an intern or start as a salesperson in training on a draw, like just the basics, the very lowest levels. With that in mind, look at all of the different companies that fall within your interest and where you could see yourself working, and then start requesting friends across all of them. And not just the top leaders, but also the younger folks, the juniors, the ones that are moving up. Because networking is key.
It's a great point. Yeah, I think for some students, there's a little bit of fear. Sometimes students think to themselves like, oh, well, I'm just a student. What could I possibly have to give to a professional, especially a senior level professional, because I've got no skills or experiences. And it's like at the end of the day, as a leader, I care about myself. And so if you're saying, Garrett, tell me more about you and how you got here, there's nothing more ego fluffing than that. And I like having my ego fluffed. Leaders like having their egos fluffed. And so by saying, tell me your story, I'd love to learn how you got to here and why you made certain decisions and what made you want to go this route, that is something that is incredibly endearing to a senior level leader. And you don't need to give them anything. You've given them the gift of your ears and a genuine inquisitiveness into their story. And that is a monster gift, a gift they don't get enough.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, start working on your resume now. If you may be too late. You should be starting putting together a ongoing life resume. And I do it today. I mean, I'm updating my resume, even though I'm not looking, and it's just start from, your experiences, your job experiences in high school and in college, and what you're learning at university, and different associations that you're in, and organizations, and start piecing that together, because you're building a story about your life, and you're going to have to sell yourself and that story from the very beginning to the end of your career. And it's always got to be updated, and look at ways to be exciting and authentic. And
do you suggest that? Because I was gonna say, there's one thing I've definitely seen before is a failure to launch. So for example, student meets with an executive and they hit it off. The executive said, you know what, honestly, we're looking to hire someone in this space. You seem like you'd be a great fit. Can you send over your resume? They're not looking for you to send over your resume in a week. They're looking for you to send over your resume within the next hour, because you're on the top of my mind. The more time that is distance between the conversation with you and the executive, and then you actually delivering them your resume, the less likely you are to take advantage of that opportunity. Because if they're thinking this is top of mind, time is of the essence.
It's immediate. Yeah. And not only that, but also following up, because they're going to get that resume. It's going to go into their inbox. They're going to look at it. They're going to get busy and file it away. And then they will never go back and look at it. Maybe not. If they're hiring, their hiring manager, they might go back. But what I guarantee is that if you get in front of them again and again, respectfully, very professional, write your professional follow-up using chat GPT. If you don't want to sit there for 2 hours trying to figure out how to follow up, I mean, use some of that, and just like send them a note. Make sure it's within, the first, immediately send them a note, send them your resume, and thank them for their time. And then follow up within like 5 days, and then follow up a week later.
What about scheduling? If it seems like there's a level of interest there, if the executive says, hey, we're hiring, this is a position we have, of need, the student, I'm a big fan of just saying, it sounds like you have a big position of need. Would it make sense for us to schedule a follow-up in a few days or a week from now to pick this back up? And in the meantime, I'll send you my resume. Get that phone call on the books. Because if it's not on the books, it's not going to happen. And if you can get it booked at the time of the call, shoot, you can save yourself all the heartache and pain of setting the follow-ups.
And don't forget to follow up when you say you're going to follow up.
If you do, there's nothing more, especially when it comes to building relationships with people, whether that be for a job or an internship. If you say you will do something, you better freaking do it. And if you don't do it, you immediately have your reputation kind of tarnished because you didn't follow up on the thing that you said. And also, even if you followed up, if they're expecting you within a time period too.
That's right. Yeah. One of the biggest challenges I've had as a young junior sales guy that was just trying to make ends meet was that whole follow-up process. I think I lost way more sales than I actually made because I just didn't do that next step, which is follow-up. That's the key. Follow-up is very important.
What do you think stopped you from the follow-up? And what do you think stopped students from the follow-up?
I think it was work. It was too much work at the time. I kind of felt like, if the timing was right, then it would all happen for me, but the reality is you have to be chasing the people that you want to meet. You have to be chasing that position. You have to be chasing the sell. Not everybody's going to go into sales, but even if it's like programming or a professional career, accounting, you're going to want to get in front of your, prospective employer and, follow up proactively, because they're not necessarily going to call you. Sales, in sales, people call me now because I have a big block of referral partners and they bring me business. But the first 10 years, it wasn't like that. I mean, I would have to stay in front and follow up and make sure that you have something to bring of value to them when you do follow up.
I think I love what you're saying on all these levels, because this is something that I think students, it's easy to overlook. So I think oftentimes students will say, oh, well, I I don't want to be annoying, or I don't want to step on anyone's toes. And the classic is, I'm sure when they're ready, they'll reach out to me. And
Right.
by that same logic is, those jerks, they told me they'd follow up and they didn't follow up. And now I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs and hoping for them to give me a call or an email back. And it's like, no, you have to put yourself out there. You got to follow up, because yes, they may need to hire for this role, but it's not the number one priority on their mind. And there's a lot of other things going on. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle. And if you are just sending one follow-up email and that's it, you're not reconnecting, retouching base, it will be easy to forget about you. Not because you aren't interesting, but because they've got a lot of other stuff going on.
And there's a lot of other people interviewing and wanting that same position.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think fear of rejection, fear of failure, that's the number one reason people don't follow up. Also, people just don't know. People don't know the skills and the how to do a follow-up and when to do it, and they overthink it. They become paralyzed by just the overwhelming, daunting task of sending a thank you or a follow-up email. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It could just be, hey, just checking back in, keep it really casual, and just staying in front. Some of the largest deals I've ever sold in my life happened because I acted like a human, and I just was really honest and very, very like you said, vulnerable, and just kind of just casual, and people appreciate that.
Do you ever just pre-write out responses? Because it sounds like the biggest hurdle is between the ears. It seems like right now the biggest hurdle of anything is just between these two ears. And if you can pre-write out your like thank you letters, resumes, pre-write out like different response cadences, so you've done all the thinking time, it's ready to go. All you got to do is copy and paste. Do you advise that? Do you think that would help simplify it in students' minds, so then there's less thinking and just more go?
Yeah. So it's 100% having that standard, follow up, the standard intro. I mean, I'm going to come back to like what's made me successful in sales. I have multiple templates of intros and follow-ups already written out. So it's easy, just copy, paste, but then make sure you don't make the mistake of sending it to John when it's actually supposed to be Sally, because I've done that before.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. No, that makes sense. But I also think for students, you might think, oh, well, will it seem impersonal if I don't personally write out this note for them? I can tell you definitively, it's a whole lot more personal to send them a message shortly after the call, and much more frustrating to not receive one, because you've been thinking about how to draft, rewrite, rewrite, and redraft a message for the past week. And they're thinking to themselves, okay, clearly this person does not care about my time because they never sent me a thank you follow-up. Where you're like, you've been poring over this, staying up all night, all day, trying to think about what is the best possible response I can tell this person as a thank you. And it's like, just send it. Just get it out of that inbox and into that person's or out of that outbox into that person's inbox, so then they can know that you care and legitimately are following up.
That's right. Yep, absolutely. And there's some other things that I think really can help give you the leg up. So think about all of the other, students that are vying for that dream job or just the initial job that you're trying to get. You need to figure out what differentiates you. Create your own personal brand, like your own professional identity, because this is like a story you're going to tell throughout your entire life. And people are going to look at your brand and who you are and how you present yourself, how you dress, how you think. And they're going to either chase you instead of you chasing that job. You're going to get to the point where they're going to start chasing you because you've really fine-tuned that identity. What are your unique skills? Learn how to sell your skills. What did you do in college? Are you an analytical thinker? Are you creative with, the eye for design, things that might differentiate you from just another person trying, look at your major and look at what you do on the side, not just your major, but what you do that's outside of that. Are you a runner? Are you an explorer? You know, are you creative? You could put that and create a brand that really sets you apart from the others.
So I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question. What is your unique skills? What are your unique strengths? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn. So Quinn, you mentioned that you had a rough like 10-year period of just getting your foot in the door, getting started, all that sort of stuff. How did you end up getting into like this telehealth type of space? What was that relationship like? How did you build that relationship? How did they learn about you?
Yep.
What happened with that?
Yeah. So what I learned is for the first 10 years was, it's like ladders. You think about this ladder, you're climbing up one step at a time. My ladders were kind of like up 2 steps, over, up 1 step, over, up 10 steps. I got a raise, I got the next job, and just kind of building on that. And getting to that point, like getting to where I was able to land this like kind of dream job, it was just basically building all the little pieces of my career, even though some of them were lateral and not really stepping up. It was more fine tuning those skills. So, I do sales, but I'm kind of an unusual sales guy because I'm very technical. I'm really interested in technology and understand, logic and databases and building things that other salespeople are not willing to do. And so that started to differentiate me, and to the point where and in 2014, I took a position as a consultant, and I got hired along. I had my job. I had a business that I was running, but I became a consultant to take advantage of some of these really good skills and relationships that I had. And so I did that. And then that transformed my career path somewhat into, I got into hearing aid sales. And like, how do you make a ton of money doing hearing aid sales from like a little town in Kentucky? But I had built up enough relationships nationally that I made some calls and was able to take these companies and like kind of get them close, connect them, and see if they attracted or pushed each other away. And selling hearing aids, one of the prospects that I was going after was a woman. Her name is Kim Darling, and she ran a company that had like this discount card. And I was like, what, that would be a really good opportunity to put my hearing aid benefit into that discount card. And so, I just picked up the phone and I cold called her, and she answered my phone call. Like it was like right out of the gate. It was kind of crazy. I found her phone number online. This was in 2014. And I sold her right on the spot. And ultimately, she became my boss in 2017. So in 2014, I sold her. We launched my hearing aid and her discount card. And I just followed up with her, keeping her posted on how the sales were going and how the benefit was and what I could do to support our new relationship. And just, passively, or actually more, periodically reaching back out to her. Well, she calls me it was like a December 2016. And she's like, "Hey, do you know somebody? I'm looking for a VP of sales. Do you know anybody that would be interested?" And it's telemedicine. Like did I want to do telemedicine? Of course, I know why she was calling me. She's seeing if I was interested. And I said that, I had a pretty good gig at the time, and I was like, nah, I'll think of somebody. If I do, I'll let you know. And she called me.
Like, I need to hire a vice president of sales whose first name starts with a Q and last name starts with a P. I'm racking my brain right now. You're the first person I thought of. Any suggestions, Quinn?
So I was like, I think I felt at the time that I had too much going on. I was too, maybe I was scared, changing my career. I mean, now I had my second child, and they're growing up, and we're established, and we've got things in nice little box. It's all going good, going well. And So I pushed her off for about 3 months, and she called me, every couple of weeks, just checking in. And so finally some things happened at that existing job that I had, that, I thought maybe I'll go out and see her. And I did. I flew to California, took a week of vacation, and she hired me right on the spot.
Wow.
But it took me 3 years of working professionally with her, not as her employee, but as like a vendor. And 3 years of her watching me be professional, watching my work ethic, watching my, who I was as a person, my integrity, and my skills. And that's when she offered me the job.
That's a great story. I love hearing that. I think for a lot of students, that's pretty eye-opening, because I think for a lot of them, they're thinking, oh, well, if this person's not interested in hiring me now, they're dead to me. They're not worth it. They're not worth keeping the relationship alive. And I think what you're alluding to and showing is, hey, they might not initially be interested in hiring you now, but down the line, who knows? Like, I'll give a perfect example. And I think this is a great story for students to hear is, one of our previous speakers on this series had shared that she was interviewing a candidate for a role, and she made him the offer, and he came back to her and said, hey, I have another offer from another company, but they're $30,000 more than what you're offering. Is there a way that you can help me create a pros and cons list that just kind of like lay this out? And she's just like, honestly, after evaluating it, I can't, like, this doesn't make any sense. But I like, go take this role, but stay in touch with me, because I see this relationship developing. I just don't have the budget to pay $30,000 more. I think you're incredibly talented, but as you get this experience at this company over here, we do have a budget to bring you back in this more elevated role come 1 year out. And that's exactly what they did. And so she had the role for him, she had the budget, and she said, I'm so glad that we maintain this relationship, because even though you didn't accept my offer initially, we ended up being able to work it out. And I love that story that you have, Quinn. It's so cool to see how those relationships develop and expand over time. And I think for students, it's such a great thing to do. So I guess I'd love to maybe take a time to ask the students a quick question. What do you want to intentionally start doing to maintain your relationships with your network? Post in the comment section. So Quinn, have you ever had a student reach out to you in a very creative way? Was there ever anything creative that a student did to get on your radar, to just have an informational interview or a conversation with you? And if so, what did they do?
So I was a recruiter for an insurance company. It's one of my first 15 jobs that I had in the first few years of my career. You got to try everything on for size. I did. I had a student that was wanted an internship, and at the time I was pretty new and green myself, but I was having some success, and he identified me as somebody that he wanted to work with and needed that internship to qualify, or I think it was a requirement for his business degree. And what I needed is somebody that could cold call, the hardest job in the world, which is basically picking up the phone and calling a complete stranger. And you have like 10, 30, 15 seconds to do your pitch and not get hung up on. And so, I mean, this guy was willing to do anything. And I tested him. I brought him on, and he spent the first few days saying, okay, show me how to do it. So where I had to sit there and do the worst job in the world, which is cold calling and trying to set appointments. And so, from that perspective, he was willing to do the worst job in the world just to get in. And today I will tell you that this guy that I recruited, that I took on as an intern, that I sat in side by side making phone calls, embarrassing ourselves because we were getting hung up on and not knowing what to do. That guy today is running $1 million company, and he's thinking about selling his company. And I've seen him do the worst of jobs, and now he's in a position where he's about to potentially retire, and he's in his 40s.
That's cool. That's a great story. I really appreciate that. I think just that ability to ask to be willing to do it yourself is cool, Quinn, but also being able to see someone develop and grow from there, especially doing those hard jobs. That's not easy at all. Let's go back though to like what are the biggest roadblocks for students? And I think that fear of rejection is a really big roadblock. How do you help? What do you encourage students to do to overcome that fear of rejection?
So practice. It just takes failure, and it takes the ability to overcome that, all of the failures that you're going to have. You're going to fail, and it's going to be, like the old sales adage is, one failure, or, failing is just one step closer to the yes, or the no is one step closer to the yes. So it's also, and I have a lot of salesy like perspective, because that's how I started in this career, and selling and developing your successes is kind of like just getting your first job. So what I found and learned very quickly, it's like this tube. You've got this long tube, and you stick, you want to sell, so you stick a sock in, like a rolled up sock, and eventually you're going to keep sticking them in, and they're going down this tube. Eventually, when you stick the next sock in, one pops out, which is a sell. So my point there is, don't be afraid to fail as many times as possible, and just being consistent and sticking more opportunities in, reaching out to more people, but doing it ethically, doing it with a positive attitude, because people will recognize when you're afraid, when you're broke, and you're just trying to get that first job, that first sell. People smell the fear, and so it takes a lot of practice to have a very positive attitude and a excited persona when you're failing and you're struggling.
Man, is that the truth or what? That is so powerful. I think that practice is so big. That note you just made was so big. I see sometimes students, I'll chat with them, they'll say, "Oh, I'll wing it. I'm a natural at chatting with people. I'm a natural at doing this." And they're not. At the end of the day, you're not. No one's really a natural. I mean, sure, you've maybe been able to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Maybe you went to your friend's wedding and you impromptu had to come up with a speech, and you did fine, but people told you did great, and so therefore you think you're like the greatest impromptu person ever. I can tell you practice makes you better 100 times out of 100,
That's
and
right.
being impromptu and winging it is never ever a better scenario than an actual practice version. And so if you can practice to get yourself there, do it. Don't believe in some false BS that you're winging it is better than you practicing it, because it's not.
That's right. And record yourself. If you have the ability to set up a tripod and take a recording, like start the video, go sit down and do your pitch, do it and watch yourself, because you're going to find you're saying all the time. Because I still do it. I record a lot of my Zoom calls, and then I go back and review them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I keep saying or I keep getting distracted, or just not focused. So there's things that you can do. There's a lot of value in recording yourself, so that you can practice better and just kind of tweak it, and ultimately you'll be way better than the competition if you're practicing.
That's a really good piece of advice there, Quinn, because it's easy for you to be objective and critical of yourself. Now, some people might say, "Oh, well, I don't like watching myself talking or speaking." It's like, yeah, because you identify all of your flaws way more clearly than a friend or family member would. They're going to tell you you are gumdrops and rainbows and you're amazing and nothing was wrong. And if that is the only bit of feedback you are leveraging to define your abilities, whether that be presenting, meeting people, having conversations, you will never be as good as you think you are. But if you can see yourself in action and record yourself and be like, okay, I could be better here, I could be better there, and you practice it and you become better in those areas, you will make massive gains and massive leaps and bounds in terms of improvement in those areas of where you want to see success.
And people are too polite to tell you.
So true.
And so
true.
Most of the time. Now, you'll find that some leaders will call you out and basically humble you and embarrass you, through this process. And it's not because they're trying to be mean or, dismiss you. They're just being honest, and they don't have time to waste. And so another thing that I highly recommend is to learn how to be humble early and not take everything personally and not have a chip on your shoulder, and just learning from that failure and becoming better, and record yourself, and then, and practice. You're gonna have to practice a lot, regardless of whatever you're gonna do in life. You're gonna have to practice a lot.
So true, man. I love that. Yeah, I think when someone does give you critical feedback, recognize two things. They don't have the time, so they're going to veer into one of two paths. They're going to veer into the what gets me out of this quicker, positive feedback that reaffirms all of your preconditioned beliefs, even though you were not great in this area. Check. All right, great. I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to get out of this call or conversation as fast as I can. That's not great feedback. But when someone takes the time to give you critical feedback, it means that they cared enough to say, you know what, John, Jenny, Joe, Shelby, whatever your name is, I think you could be better by doing this. If they didn't care, they wouldn't tell you. Because they care, they told you. And they want to see you succeed.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that took me a long time to learn as well. I used to get upset, and I used to get, I think my ego at the time was too big, and I just thought, I'll just do something else because it didn't sit well. And I wasted a lot of time doing that, spinning my wheels, So, and I'd like to say that just being authentic will get you so much further down the road than trying to, razzle dazzle and create something that you're not. Being honest and having a story to tell that is interesting and where people can connect, that makes you human. It shows that you're honest. It shows that you're, an interesting and active listener, and a person that they want to be like. I will tell you that if you can inspire leaders to want to be like you as a junior, you're going to have a skill that's going to give you a road to become that leader. And hopefully you'll look at these juniors in a way that you can learn from. And I think authenticity it breaks down any boundaries, just being really authentic and honest as you're developing your network.
I love that. I love to ask the students a question real quick. Post in the comment section. What is a time that your ego got in the way of an opportunity for you? Post it. I love to learn about the story. And I think we all have a scenario like that where we thought a person mistreated us or that we were overlooked. And in hindsight, and you, by the way, might still be processing this because the frustration might be fresh. But after realizing it, you realize, dang, they weren't trying to sabotage me. They weren't trying to bring me down. They gave me this feedback, or they gave me this insight because they wanted to see me improve. But unfortunately, the insight and perspective they gave me was not exactly what I wanted to hear. And by the way, students, post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. 1, 2, I think that this is my hot take. I think this is something that exists throughout your life. And in fact, I would care to argue that CEOs are the worst with this. Because the higher anyone goes in their organizational hierarchy, objectivity diminishes. And by that, I just mean the likelihood that you have a colleague, a fellow team member, an employee that's below you in the organizational hierarchy that challenges your way of thinking or calls you out in any way, shape, or form, very low because they don't want to get fired. And that's where you see some CEOs make some bad decisions or bad calls because everyone around them are yes people that have said, oh, you're amazing, you're fantastic, you do no wrong. And it's like a reaffirming bias because like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have become the CEO had I done any wrong. So I guess I'm probably right. But I guess the point I'm making, students, is it's normal and it's natural and it's okay to admit when your ego has gotten in the way, but it's important that you can acknowledge it because if you can't, you might be in for some struggles moving forward. But if you can, you can at least be self-aware enough to recognize there are opportunities always for you to improve and grow, and that somebody you maybe felt slighted you wasn't slighting you, but in fact was trying to see you be better.
I want to bring up an interesting challenge, and I would want to challenge, anybody listening to this to think about doing this strategy. Try to create an opportunity and leverage like an informational interview. And what I mean by that is try to meet, even if they're not hiring, try to meet professionals that you can, non-threateningly ask to interview you to gain insights into their career, their job, where you're almost interviewing that leader. And what you're doing in this strategy is it's non-threatening. You're asking for their advice. You're learning from their experiences. You're showing genuine interest in their work. And what's going to happen is they're going to learn, who you are, and with authenticity and being humble. This is going to lead to referrals. It's going to lead to uncovered hidden opportunities that will be worth a lot more than just another job interview that you're fighting for against everybody else.
No.
So leverage informational interviews where you're interviewing them to learn more about what they do as a leader.
And they'll give you the time because people love talking about themselves.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, Quinn, this has been a great conversation. I think the students have a lot that they picked up from this conversation. Any final points or any final tips or suggestions that you have for students as they move into their careers?
Prepare, start thinking now. Think about, how to showcase your skills and expertise. Write it down. Obviously create your resume, but create the list. And writing your resume, in the day and age of ChatGPT and all the tech resources, people just plug in this and that, and suddenly they get all the answers. Write it, like go from scratch and just wrestle with all the details of your life so that you are able to create your own personal story, something that you own, that you are honest with yourself about. And when you start telling that story as you go along your career, it's going to be yours, and you're going to have opportunity. You're going to resonate with the right folks and get the job that you have been seeking for.
That's cool. Well, hey, Quinn, thanks for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See everybody.
Thank you.